Hey guys, I'm Brenda Breland and I'm here to chat all things health, fitness, mindset, and business. I will be sharing how transforming my body allowed me to transform my life and how you can do the same. So grab a cup of coffee or your favorite cocktail. I'm so excited you're here. Let's get unfiltered.
All right, you guys, welcome back to Unfiltered. I'm so excited. We have our first ever registered dietitian on the show, Hannah Holzum. I'm so excited to have you, girl. How are you?
Doing well. I'm excited to be here and get to chat with you today.
Yay. Okay, so we have to tell everyone kind of how we met because we're in like the crazy cheer mom group, right? Like
Yes.
there's some stigma around the cheer mom life, but like that's how we met.
Yep.
We met at a cheer gym. It was last year.
Yeah.
And our daughters kind of hit it off, and it was kind of like just a fun experience. I know we're at different cheer gyms now, but how's cheer going? How's all that going for you guys?
It's good. We're in the thick of competition season. So my other two daughters are also in season right now in gymnastics. And so we are running every weekend, but it's good. It's fun. Kids love it. And I'm all about them staying active and, doing stuff that they love.
Absolutely, and keeping you busy all the time.
Keeping me busy. That's right. Yeah. As I know, you know.
Yes, yes. So I think that's like a perfect kind of segue for us because I think a lot of moms are going to be on listening to this, and a lot of them are on the go, whether they're like on cheer moms or baseball parents, or even maybe just busy execs who like are on the go traveling constantly. So I'd love to kind of jump into kind of that space and talk to you a little bit about how you maintain a healthy and healthy body composition is how I want to put it. Healthy body composition as well as just good overall health while you're like on the go all the time.
Yes. Well, and I love that. I feel like you hit the nail on the head talking about first off body composition and thinking about that while we're busy too. I think so many moms and busy moms everywhere, people everywhere are so focused on the number on the scale. Oh my gosh, the scale's going up, or even just think about, I don't want to lift weights or eat too much protein, or I don't want to get too bulky. And like you have all of those thoughts going on in your head. And then you're also trying to manage this busy schedule. So I love what you said about body comp because you and I are on the same page when it comes to that. And, as moms, especially, our body comps change once we have kids. And then as we stay super busy, it can feel really, really hard to manage that. So I think, just personally, thinking about those daily habits, those things that I'm doing each day, and knowing that every day adds up. And if we're not careful and we're not doing the right things every day, those days add up. And then before you know it, you don't even recognize your body anymore. You don't feel great anymore. You feel like you need a coffee to make it through the day, or a coffee to get your kids. Okay, now my second half of my day starts where I'm running kids to practices or I'm taking them places. And I think when we really do have to be a lot more conscious and a lot more aware of the choices that we're making throughout the day and how those are going to set us up to keep us energized to make it until 9 p.m. at night, and to, be able to get a good supper on the table for our families and things like that as well. So yeah, I think that all those things that seem so little are the really big things, like making sure we've got a well-balanced diet throughout the day.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you said their daily habits. So someone comes to you and they're like, all right, Hannah, like I get it, daily habits, but I don't have time. What do you say to them?
Yeah. Well, first off, I totally understand where they're coming from because it can feel like you don't have time. But, I'm going to sound like Forrest Gump here, but my mom used to always, I remember when I was younger, her always be like, you make time for the things you care about, you make time for the things that are important to you. And I think that same thing goes for your health. And luckily for me, I worked in the hospital systems and I've worked with people in the older stages of life. And so I say that as a blessing because I can see back then I used to be able to see where these people were. And I'm like, I don't want to develop diabetes. I don't want to have to be on blood pressure medicine. So doing these things now while as we all like to say, we're all still young, and finding time, like we really do have to make pockets of time in the day to take care of that stuff. But I think what people would be most surprised about is that it really doesn't take as long as you think. Like the
Mhm.
amount of time we waste on social media, or the time
Scrolling, yes.
yeah, the time we waste trying to think about getting up the energy to go exercise, or what am I going to do for my exercise? The amount of time we waste with that, like we could be getting stuff done. And so I think as busy moms, we have to be super mindful of that and have a plan and make sure to create little pockets in the day to get a walk in, to make sure we're going to fill up our waters, to make sure we got some good healthy meals, whether we're cooking it or having it prepped for us or whatever that looks like. But it's kind of that out of sight, out of mind. And if you're not thinking
Mhm.
about it, it's not going to magically happen to you.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I think a lot of people see dietitians, online fitness trainers, whatever they are, and they're like, oh, like it's just easy. It happens for them. No, like I think that's what a lot of people, they don't relate to that because they feel like they can't do that. And I think like, yes, it's going to be really uncomfortable to start, right? Like prepping meals, for example, is really uncomfortable to start. And then when you're a pro at it, it takes you no time to do it. So I think like realizing like the people that are telling you these things were once where you were at and they had to figure it out. And that's kind of why you do what you do, is to help them understand how they can make small steps in implementing these daily habits that are going to help them change their overall health long term.
Totally. Totally. And I think I like what you said too about that, because I've had people say, and I'm sure you have too, like, I wish I liked to work out like you, or I wish I could do that. And it's like, I don't prefer to actually go lift weights and sweat and be exhausted and hurt and be sore. I would much rather sit on the couch and find a good Netflix show. Like
Right.
it's a lot more comfortable. But as they all say, you don't grow if you're staying comfortable. And yeah, and I think when you're in the place, that you and I are in, it's not easy. But I know I've made the comment to you, I'm like, Brenda, I appreciate how you are consistent. Like, it really does make you realize when you see other people in that stage too, like you understand the work that they put into that to, get the results that they're getting. So yeah, it's not easy. It gets easier, but it's not easy. And as stages change and your kids' stages change and, stages of your business change or whatever, life looks like for you, you have to make those changes to be able to sustain throughout the changes of your seasons of life too.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I would love to talk a little bit about the seasons of life and kind of like what I see in misconceptions with that is because people look and they're like, if they're like viewing it as a scale, right? They're like, your health and fitness journey should always just go straight down. Like it should never be like that. And like in life, that's just not life. So it's not realistic to me. So like kind of talk about like how you help people through those stages of life and like what are some small changes that you've seen that work in these journeys that help them kind of navigate that without feeling like they're going backwards.
Yes, yeah. I think it's easier to help people going through a lot of these things when you've gone through them too. And I'm sure you can relate. I think first step is kind of you have kids, your body changes. That's a big change. You're like, wow, all of a sudden it turns out I can't just eat whatever I want in whatever quantities I want.
Right.
It turns out that just exercising a couple times a week is going to do it for me. And I think that that's a really big misconception that people have, is that they think they're broken or something's wrong with them. And sure, sometimes, yes, sometimes hormones may look a little different, or sometimes, they may have other thyroid issues or other things going on. So it might truly be a little bit more difficult, but just even as we age, it becomes more difficult. And so that's something that, I help a lot of my clients with, is this whole change that starts to happen. Like you're not to menopause yet, but you still definitely are seeing these changes where your metabolic rate's dropping. And so we work through a lot of that and trying to incorporate things that they can do each day. Exercise is a huge piece. Yes, I'm a dietitian. I talk about food all the time, but I'm like, you cannot just do nutrition. Like you cannot just have your nutrition on point. You really do have to make sure you've got the right strength training program and things like that. And so, I think tip wise, one thing that I always bring it back to just learning how to eat in general, and yes, there are some fine-tuned things that people need and some information that they need, and they should be aware of, how many calories their body needs and how much protein they need. That is very important for them to know. But I think even just at a baseline, like if someone's listening in and they're not doing nutrition coaching and they just want to be better, I think just thinking through the things that to be true, fruits and vegetables, whole foods, things that are found naturally. It's not realistic to think we're going to only be able to eat that way, probably, especially as busy moms, but we should be trying to eat as much of those things as possible. We should be trying to choose lean proteins whenever we're eating, because that's going to help us sustain the energy. We do need sources of carbohydrates to make sure that we're getting energy, but we want to make sure those are good sources, potatoes and fruit and things like that, rather than, a Monster drink and a candy bar on the go, or, a bag of chips. There's a time and a place for little bits of those things for sure. But if you're fueling on that, it's like putting junk in your gas tank, right? Like that's the outcome you're gonna get if you're trying to fuel up with junk. And so kind of as we think progressively throughout your lifespan and how things change, knowing that it's not going to be easy, it's actually going to continue to get a little bit harder. You don't have the energy needs that you need, but doing things like eating those foods that we know that will make a big difference to us, and making sure to strength train so that we can try to increase metabolism. Those are huge things that literally everybody can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. And like, I know you mentioned, basically said, like, take it back to basics is kind of what you said, like go to the things that and simplify it as much as possible, which I think is something really important, especially for busy moms. Like, the simpler you make this, the easier that this is going to be for you in the long run.
Absolutely. Yeah. And thinking about, like, one thing I talk with moms about too, it's really interesting because when we really dig in, I'll say, do you like fruits and vegetables? Yeah, I do. I'm like, do you eat fruits and vegetables? And they'll say, I make sure my kids do.
Yeah.
So thinking, and of course, as moms, we want our kids to be well nourished. We want to make sure that they're getting a well-rounded diet, but who are they watching for guidance? They're watching us. And if you're putting peas on their plate and you're not eating peas, they're going to be like, what the heck? Like, I'm not eating peas, And so, like, there's so many aspects of it, like thinking about nutrition for moms, but there's always little eyes watching. And, I always say, well, treat your body the way you treat your kids' bodies. If you want to nourish them well, we should be doing the same things for ourselves.
Yeah, I love that. So let's jump into, because I'm assuming meal plans is like the biggest thing that you probably get asked for when it comes to nutrition and just people wanting to hit their goals. I know a lot of women place a lot of value in meal plans. So I would love to hear your perspective on meal plans, how you can utilize them to create a good relationship with food and really understand your body, how you use them with clients, all those kind of things. I'd love to hear on that.
Yeah, so I have mixed feelings on the meal plans because I gotta be honest, I hate meal plans. Only because I totally understand why people want them, because you're like, when you're at that point where you want to make a change, you're like, just tell me what to do. I'll do anything. Like, just tell me what to eat. And you think that's what you need, but you really just need to learn how to eat. However, I will say, I love a good guide. I love a good guide. I think it's so helpful. And so, I'll provide kind of a guidance, like, have a fruit or vegetable here and have a protein here and have things you like. Because that's the other thing too. If you're trying to follow a plan and you don't like the foods on it, you're not going to do it long term. Yeah. Or if one of us were to give one of our clients a meal plan, like, sure, they could do it at home in January if they have nothing going on. But then, like, spring comes and your kid plays baseball and now you're traveling all the time. What are you going to do? Like, you're gone for the whole weekends. Maybe you'll pack your food with you, but that's probably not feasible for most people. And so you really have to learn how to eat. So I think with meal plans, I think they can be really helpful as guides. So using it as a guide. And, normally I would say eat a good variety. Make sure you've got good color on your plate. You have to have protein. So many women don't eat enough protein, as I know you know too. Like, making sure that you have all of those good things. Whole foods, that sort of thing. You're eating at home more. You have more control over the things that you're eating. So yeah, that's probably not like a fun answer that everyone wants to hear, but that's how I teach it, is learning how to do it, using plans as a guide, for sure.
I love it. I love it. That's every single day I get on a walkthrough, and as well as I do, a lot of women listening too are like, if I'm going into a program, I want meal plans, because they see that perceived value in it, when in reality, yes, it's great for us, something for you to look at, but you can go online and get a meal plan anywhere if you want it. Let's be honest, right? It's the guidance and the support and understanding how to eat, what to eat, the quality and the quantity of the food to eat to support your specific body. So I'm always like, use a meal plan, but it's a guide and not a Bible. Like
Exactly.
you're never wanting just to learn how to eat off of a meal plan. That's never going to work.
Right.
So I love your point of view on that. So I'd love to jump in here into carbs because I think we differ a small amount on how we utilize carbs with clients. So I'd love to hear kind of your thoughts on how you would utilize carbs with clients who come to you who maybe do have hormone imbalances or have signs of diabetes or estrogen dominance or insulin resistance. Like when we know there's issues with their bodies utilizing glucose or regulating insulin, what are things that you would do in these situations?
Yeah. So first off, I'll just share with you. I probably, maybe I've shared this with you before, but I'll share this with listeners too. But
Yeah.
I actually have PCOS. I have polycystic ovarian syndrome. I found out when we were trying to get pregnant. I'm like, why am I having 70-day long cycles and then a 30-day long cycle and just kind of all over the board? And so I actually do have PCOS. So carbs are something I always keep in mind. Where I haven't seen the effects of impaired insulin or glucose resistance, insulin resistance, anything like that yet. But I do keep that in mind because that's someplace I don't want to go. So with carbohydrates, I love carbs, not to eat, but I think that they're very valuable, but I think there's such a wide range of types of carbohydrates. So
Yes.
you can't be, it's not ideal to be fueling on simple sugars. Okay. From time to time, sure. And if you're eating a well-balanced meal and then you're going to have a little chocolate after, your body's going to process that a lot better. But I will say, yes, everyone's needs are very, very different. And the people with diabetes I work with, I'm definitely going to recommend fewer carbs, or different kinds of carbs. And so I think from my perspective, and again, I can't make a blanket statement across the board because everyone's going to be in a different stage, but for most people, I'm going to say that most people very much can have a good source of carbohydrates at meals. So whether that's potatoes, or whole grain breads too, everyone's glucose is going to respond a little bit differently to products. Like I see it across the board. Some people can do bread, they do great. And then other people are like, I can't do bread. My blood sugar spikes, or bananas and things like that. And so my biggest recommendation with carbs is that you make sure that you truly do have a good protein source with it. Even if you eat your proteins first, or you eat your fiber-rich vegetables first, your body, it will change the way your body reacts and responds to the glucose too. And hopefully that'll prevent you from having these high glucose spikes. Some people feel better to not have as many carbs. And so I think listening and paying attention kind of to your own body and signs and things like that, if you're one of those people, then taking it down a notch. But I definitely don't recommend cranking up the carbs by any means, but I do think it's great, especially when you're active, to provide you with some energy to get a good effective workout too.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that you hit on in what you were just saying that I want people to understand is like, you heard what she was saying. It's like her carbs are clean quality carbs. 99.9% of the time, no matter what you have going on, hormone imbalance, there's going to be some things that are going to affect glucose at a different rate or things like that, but you're not going to set yourself backwards most of the time with clean carbs. It's like snacking on, having Oreos after every meal, like though, your meals being Quest chips and like these random things that are processed. So I'm curious, have you or do you ever utilize a low carb or keto macro split or like something along those lines for any of your clients? Do you ever use that as a tool?
I don't. I have, and again, I don't specialize in hormone imbalances and things like that. I definitely have had clients with some hormonal imbalances, some PCOS, and I definitely have clients with diabetes too. But typically I see really great results when their carbs are from great sources. Definitely when they have protein and healthy fats are definitely going to change the way that you respond and that your blood sugar responds across the board. So I've been able to work with clients who we've had more of I like to call it more of a consistent carbohydrate diet where, you're keeping it even. You're not having meals where it's like lots of carbs at this meal and then no carbs at this meal. You really keep it a little bit more consistent, but you also are going to be choosing things that are coming from more whole food sources with a good combination at the meal. So if someone's drinking orange juice, that is like a recipe for disaster. Or if you're just eating some cookies, like your blood sugar will absolutely spike. And even for people who don't have diabetes, you know, if we're thinking from like a craving standpoint, if you are having sugar, your blood sugar is going to spike and it's going to come back down. Diabetes or not. And then well, and with diabetes, it may stay up, but then when it comes down, your body is really good at knowing what it needs. And so when you have these blood sugar crashes and you're like, oh my gosh, why am I craving cookies? Why am I craving Cheez-Its? Why am I craving all these things? Again, those are within moderation. Okay, we'll see. But your body knows it needs energy. Your blood sugar crashes and it's like, hey, I know carbs are my quickest source of energy. Give me that. And so that's why you crave those things. So I think, you know, diabetes or not, or hormone imbalance or not, you know, keeping that in mind, even if you don't have those things, that you need to be really aware of how you're pairing your carbohydrates and the choice of the carbohydrate that you're eating for sure.
Yep. I think it's so important what you said is like just understanding how the carbohydrate affects your body. That's really like the goal for everyone is like have the understanding, the knowledge, the education to have control and know how that's going to affect your body, and then make the decisions that, you know, obviously best support your goals and body compositions and lifestyle and all those things. I don't think there's one way that's better than the other. There's so many different strategies and ways that people can do things. And that's the beauty of this is that it's not one size fits all.
Yeah. And I think you notice just individually, you feel better certain ways, you know, like even having PCOS, I feel better if I have a carbohydrate source when I eat. Other people though, don't necessarily feel the same way. So I think that's a really important thing to remember is that you really need to listen to your body and how your body is responding to the foods that you're eating too. Like, absolutely. And that's, yeah, like you said, that's going to look a little bit different for everybody.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to, you mentioned lean proteins, healthy fats. So I want to get your, like, you know, your point of view on like the nutritional guidelines, like protein per meal. How much do you typically recommend per meal, like just for a standard, you know, based on what the nutritional standards are? Do you agree with that? Do you think they should have more or less? What are your thoughts?
So the nutrition guidelines, as far as like the RDA for protein, I personally feel like it's too low. Now, as a dietitian, that's what I was taught. That's what the guidelines are. I never go quite that low, only because I feel like, especially if we're talking about building lean mass, that it doesn't quite support that for most people. So normally I would recommend, I blanket across the board, no matter what size you are or how much you weigh, everyone should be getting a bare minimum of 20 to 25 grams per meal, bare minimum. A lot of people need more than that, but that's what I would say as a blanket statement for everybody, that you should at least be getting that kind of no matter what. So you know, I usually I look at the overall protein in the meals and for the day. I also look at body weight and goals and things like that. So my protein recommendations would change depending on, you know, how big someone is and what their goals are for sure. But I would say like flat statement,
Bare minimum.
Bare minimum, at least 20 to 25. And you may need more than that, but yeah. But
do you find that
too low?
Yeah. Do you find that a lot of the women that come to you are way under eating that like bare minimum? What do you see across the board typically?
90+% are eating too low protein.
Yeah.
Or if they're eating a lot of protein, they're really getting a lot of fat with it too. It's not as lean of protein choices as they could be.
So talk to me about fats. Like what, one of the things that I absolutely hate in this world is vegetable oil and canola oils. Like we're just not educated in the right way. That to me, they're awful. So I would love to hear your point of view on oils, which ones like you typically recommend, and kind of get your thoughts on the vegetable canola oil debacle.
Yes. So my favorite oils would be, I like olive oil. I think olive oil is a great oil. I like avocado oil too. Those are the two that I will use when I'm cooking or sauteing vegetables and things like that, salad dressings. I'm with you. I use the other ones very sparingly. I would say, honestly, I won't say I never have it, but pretty much I don't have it. Yeah. And flavor wise too, let alone like the, you know, the nutritional side too. I think just flavor wise, I I prefer the olive and the avocado
Yeah.
oils and just the fat, the
Mhm.
fats that come from those too. But also I think, most women underutilize healthy fats. Now, I'll be completely honest, I'm probably the only dietitian that does not like seafood. I don't love fish. It's not my favorite thing ever. And so I try to be a little bit mindful about that and use things like chia seed and flax seed and try to get some healthy fats in. I really don't love avocado either. It's kind of crazy. So
Same.
some of those healthy fat options just don't do it for me. So I try to do, some flax seed in my Greek yogurts or some chia seeds, things like that on top, or in smoothies and things to try to get healthy fats in that way. I definitely do olive oil probably every single day. That's usually what I saute my veggies in. But yeah, of course, fish products, those you get some great omega-3s that way too. So if you like fish, trying to do fish at least once a week would be a great
Yeah.
goal to start with, maybe twice if you're a big fan.
Yeah. Same. I don't like avocados really at all. I'll eat them if I have to, and I don't like seafood. So I'm on the same playing field with you on that one. So I would love to talk a little bit. So we're talking about fats. I would love to kind of hear your thoughts on like utilizing clean, healthy fats, and like if you have a point of view on cardiovascular disease, like those types of things, because I know that's in the fitness world, there's very differing opinions here on this. So I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah. So I am always very I would say I'm very cautious with saturated fats for sure. So more so than anything, like if I'm looking over what someone's eating and their fat intake, like if their fat intake's looking a little on the high side and it looks just kind of a little imbalanced with the rest of the day, the first thing I do is check to see, where are these fats coming from? And so we know that saturated fat, I mean, that is primarily what's going to cause heart disease. And we can start to see things like cholesterol rise, and we can start to see plaque buildup in our 30s for sure. I've seen people in their 20s with high cholesterol. And so we really need to be aware of that. And I think especially as women, we're at much higher risk of developing cardiovascular disease. And I think that no amount of exercise that we do, of course, we know exercise is going to increase HDL, that good cholesterol, and it's really great for cardiovascular health. But no amount of exercise that we can do is going to negate the diet. We're not going to be able to wipe that out. And so I do always recommend that people are very, very in tune with the amount of saturated fats they're eating. So you're going to find saturated fat in animal products, but they're a lot lower in some animal products than others. So trying to stick to, the leaner proteins like chicken and turkey. And I always say the fewer legs the animal has, the leaner it typically is. So like your chickens, your turkeys, those are going to be a lot leaner than things like pork and beef. And those things a couple times, I usually say red meat once or twice a week is great. I feel like you can keep your saturated fat intake a little bit better. The other thing to keep in mind is you find a lot of saturated fats in baked goods, processed foods. So that helps keep the shelf life on those products too. So if you're eating a lot of processed foods, you probably are going to get, or baked goods, you're probably going to find a little bit more saturated fat that way too. So yeah, definitely when you're thinking fat, you want to try to focus in more on those heart healthier fats. And just at a baseline, if you're like, well, how am I going to know if I go to the store? I'm not a dietitian. How am I going to know? I think even just looking at the nutrition label on the back of like if it's in a box, checking the nutrition label, or even meat, there's a nutrition label typically. You want to check and just look at that saturated fat, and the ones that say saturated, that's not great. The mono and the polyunsaturated, those are going to be more of your heart healthy fats.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. I think like, obviously, with keto, carnivore, like all of these things really big. I think there's like a lot of different ways to look at this. And I think number one, I always recommend like, go get your labs tested. If you want to know how your body's reacting to things, go get your cholesterol checked. Right. And I think one of the biggest things that I think we're missing just in general is with cholesterol is that we're only looking at it from like one standpoint. We're not really looking at it from like, what is our LDL, HDL, triglyceride? Like, what is the ratio here? Like, and then looking at that person's body. So again, I know I constantly say like going back to like just understanding your body and like what works for you. But definitely looking at those labels and paying attention. And this is where someone like a dietitian comes in to be able to teach you how to understand what you're seeing on these labels and what things work for your body and won't work for your body.
Yes. And I think just what you said, we all, no matter what you do, how you eat, anything, we all should be checking in with our doctors and checking labs and making sure everything looks good and that we're not missing anything. Because of course you have genetics too. Like, yes, genetics plays a little bit of a role too, but a lot of what we're doing through diet and exercise and how your body responds to things, you definitely want to make sure you're keeping an eye on that so that you can make changes if you need to make changes.
Yeah, I love that. So one more thing, I know we're kind of going over time, but I'm having fun here. Okay. So, let kind of talk to me a little bit about when you're looking at foods and things from a nutrition standpoint for a meal, like a meal planning in general. What,
Yeah.
like, if you have someone that comes to you and they're like, I don't want to spend a bunch of money on food, because I think that's one of the misconceptions as well, is that like, if you're meal prepping, you're cooking all these meals and you're doing all these things. So like, what do you do to help people and women and men understand how to eat in a way that also can kind of help them probably save money from the habits and things that they were doing before?
Yeah. Oh, this is great because I think we can all, I mean, we've all been to the grocery store, right? We're all like, okay, oh my gosh, these strawberries are $6 for the box. Like, holy cow. But there are ways that it is a little bit cheaper to eat. And I think, honestly, doing a little analysis where you see how much money you spend going out to eat, and then you see how much money you spend by cooking at home, you're probably going to find that cooking at home is a lot cheaper. But I think being thoughtful about knowing, perfect example would be frozen meat, like frozen foods. So frozen chicken breast, even frozen beef patties, frozen fruits and vegetables, very cheap compared to fresh. And the thing is we think, sometimes I think people have the misconception that frozen is not as good. And that's actually not true. When you freeze fruits and vegetables, they flash freeze them and then they keep. So when you have even things like produce, they're going to lose little bits of nutrient over time. Now, we're in mid-Missouri, so we're nowhere close to the tropical places that grow some of these produce. And so by the time it travels to us, in reality, they could have lost a little bit of nutrients. So as soon as they're, harvested, they're flash frozen, they're very, very good. So that is one thing I personally practice as a busy mom and as just for cost savings. I get a ton of those steam bagged vegetables. That's not the way I prefer to eat my vegetables. I'd much rather air fry or saute them or roast them, but in a pinch, they're great. They're ready in 4 minutes in the microwave. They're like $1.25 a bag. It's just so easy. No dirty dishes. Hallelujah. So those would be great things to do. Even fruit, you can throw those in a smoothie. You can defrost those. You can put them in some overnight oats, chicken breast, beef patties. We do, my oldest daughter doesn't get home from the gym till 9. She loves a good burger. So we'll air fry a beef patty. It's so easy. So like thinking through those things, even if you have a Sam's membership or go to the grocery store, grab a rotisserie chicken. Oh my gosh.
My favorite. Yeah.
Makes life so much easier. It's so nice. So rotisserie chickens, just think about ways. I always say, when I'm talking about nutrition, I always say most people are more concerned with what they need to get rid of, but you need to add to your plate. But when I'm talking overall busy moms, think about the things you can take off your plate. Like what can make your life a little bit easier so that you can do this? So if that means getting some chicken that's already cooked or some vegetables that are already, maybe some fruits or veggies, you go to the grocery store, they'll have stuff prepped and chopped for you. That's more expensive, but if that makes your life easier and it helps you be able to eat it, great. If you do really well with meal prepping or you don't mind to take a few hours on a Sunday, meal prep, like that will save you a ton of time throughout the week. Money, you use up everything you've got. So there's some really, like we kind of talked about before, it takes work to make changes like this, but it can be super valuable and really help you out throughout the week to do things like prepping your own food or grabbing stuff that's like kind of halfway prepped from the grocery store.
Yeah, I love that. So what are like organic? Talk to me, like, is it worth the cost?
Yeah. Okay. So I don't buy organic unless it's the same, it's on sale and it's reasonable at the same price. I grew up in the country. I actually grew up detasseling corn. I was in the FFA, all of the stuff. And so I feel like most of the time, nutrient wise, the nutrients aren't going to be different from organic to inorganic. You're still going to get a lot of the good value. The organic is more if you have concerns, and there are people, I'm not going to say that that's not that's not a real thing, or that you shouldn't be concerned with where your food is coming from. Absolutely you should, but it costs a lot of money to get that organic, certified organic stamp. And so there's some people who farm organic that don't have that stamp, or there's some organic that can still be, get E. coli in it. Like, just because you buy organic doesn't mean it's with 100% certainty safe. So I usually recommend, like, if that's important to you, go for it. But if you're looking to save some money, or, you're like, it doesn't really bother me, then most of my stuff, I'd say at least half of my stuff probably is not organic.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know the answers to that. So I was glad that you shed some light on that. Cause you go to, like, you see all this stuff and it's like, okay, is this really better for me? Or is it actually going to give me any different nutrients? And there's your answer to that, you guys.
Yeah.
So, like, one more thing on this, and then we'll try to wrap it up, is, so I know you use Coda's Kitchen. There's places in Columbia, like I Love Bushes, like I can get my protein there. So, like, do you feel like that's a good option for people to have, like, as they're on the go, or maybe they have a crazy week, to be able to do something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's funny when I thought, okay, I'm going to buy this meal prep. Like, I help people, I teach people what to eat for a living. But when it comes for me, again, just being an entrepreneur, a mom of 3, like, something's got to give. And I think when you can take some stuff off your plate to be able to help you, that's one of those situations for me that I feel like helps. Now, I don't buy all my meals out prepped, but for lunches, when I'm in the middle of a work day and I can just run up, throw something in the microwave for 2 minutes and eat, it's so helpful. So yes, I think taking advantage, whether you meal prep it or you pay someone who meal preps it, I think as long as you're aware of the nutrition, most of them are pretty good about saying what the nutrition facts are. So I think being able to pay attention to that and be aware of what you're eating, I think that can be a really, really helpful solution for busy parents on the go.
Yeah, girl, it relieves so much stress. So many, if I know I have, like, calls back to back, I'm like, I'm going to go get some protein, and I just get a big thing of protein, big thing of veggies, and I just call it good, and I'll buy my fruit and I'll add it on. And it's so easy.
It's so easy. And not to mention, I don't know about you, Brenda, but I feel like I take care of everyone everywhere. And when someone preps a meal for me, I'm like, oh my gosh. That's just amazing. Someone loves me. I mean, you know what I mean? It just makes it's so nice to have. So yeah, I think utilizing those services can be so great for busy parents.
Yeah. And girl, I swear it's the best tasting chicken breast I've ever had. I'm like, someone else cooks a chicken breast. I'm like, this is so good. I didn't have to do anything for it. I can sit here and eat it. It's perfect. Okay. So one last question to wrap this up is, it's January. We know everyone's out there trying all the things to try to lose weight. There's all kinds of things going around, from injections to fasting diets to OMAD to, like, all of the things, right? I want to know your number one tip for someone out there right now who wants to start losing weight and doesn't know where to start, or is feeling like nothing's working.
Okay. Yeah, I love this. So my number one tip would be, if you are thinking about starting something and you don't see yourself doing it long term, do not do that plan. If you are focused in on, okay, I've got a wedding in 2 months, I've got to do this for 2 months, and then I'm going to be done. Like, do not do it. It will mess you up more than if you didn't do it at all. So don't do it. Start small. Like, my biggest recommendation is just to start small. Like, start with something that you can do. And you're like, you know what? I can do this forever. Whether that's drinking water, whether that's eating, more vegetables, whether that's, okay, I'm going to make sure every time I eat, I try to have a good lean protein every time I eat. Like, I think people think they need this huge, big plan. And sometimes, yes, like, I think we can both agree there is a lot of value in working with someone and having a plan. But if you're just in the moment and you're thinking about what you want to do, starting small and making sure that that feels like something that you can see yourself doing in 2 years, then you're doing the right thing. I think with anything like injections or super low calorie diets, or, a fat, like a cleanse or something like that, I'm not saying those things can't help you lose weight, but it's probably, most of those things are not sustainable weight loss. So just thinking about that when you go to make up your mind of what it is that you want to do to help you meet your goals, you just want to make sure it's something that you feel good about, that you can see yourself doing forever, because that's the goal.
Yep. I love it. Sustainability, girl. Key.
Yes.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining me. Can you let everyone know where they can find you on all the things? And I know you have some freebies on your website, so go ahead and share with them where they can find all that.
Yes, sure. Well, you can find me. I am on Instagram at Holzum Nutrition Co. And you can also go to my website, wholesomnutritionco.com. I've got some freebies on there. Hopefully going to bring you some new freebies this year too. That's one of my goals. But I've got some freebies for some healthy lunch ideas, kitchen clean outs, kind of going through your cabinets and everything else. So yeah, definitely go there, check it out. I've got a blog too, if you want to check some of that out. But definitely go check me out on social media. Right now I'm doing a restaurant week. So I'm doing going through different restaurants, because even though I recommend eating at home, the reality as busy parents is that we're probably going to go out to eat at some point, and we should be able to do that and be able to make good choices. So that's kind of a fun little series I'm doing now. So hopefully you'll check it out, and yeah, send me a message, say hi.
Yes, I love it. I'm glad you mentioned your restaurant week. You have amazing reels too. So you guys go check her out. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, girl. I really appreciate you.
Yeah,
And
Brenda.
as always, let's keep it unfiltered. If you're hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode, and for that, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I hope you enjoyed this new episode, and if you did, please leave me a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And as always, keep it unfiltered.